Rightio, we're getting closer to the pointy end. Just got to put these gaskets onto the blower. A couple of holes for some pop rivets. One thing I noticed just before you put these on, can sort of see there. I don't know if you can see that, but the casting or the plastic moulding or whatever however these are made, it does leave some little loose bits there. So I'm just going to run some emery tape around the edges just to get rid of that. Don't want that going into the engine. You can see a bit there just hanging off, so yeah, just tidy up those edges before we pop rivet him on. Go on like that. But yeah, just going to give those edges a clean up. Righto, so basically pop riveting the two outside holes. You can see this port matching is terrible. Like if this was NA, you wouldn't be happy with that. Very hard to see there, but this is chamfered into the head, but it doesn't line up with that at all. And then this side has a lip. It's like the holes need to move sideways by 2 mil or so. Before I bolt them on, I might actually see how they look against the cylinder head. I did try the other gasket too. It's exactly the same. The caps are the same, so yeah, it's interesting. Alright, this is the fun part. We've got the radiator in, we've got the pulleys done, we've got the belt path done, we've got the heat exchanger on, pipe work is here ready to go. Next step is removing this bad boy, so it should be a case of just take the injector plugs off, disconnect the fuel, unbolt him, and she comes straight out, hopefully. Right, while the inlet manifold's off, we might as well throw this new steam port crossover pipe on. You can see they've already put the dash fitting on and sealed the two threads there, so there's a bit of flexi hose, some bolts, throw them back on. So that is pretty tight there. Got a couple of fittings here, pretty close to that. That'll go on there alright. And then that can go like that. Doesn't look as beautiful as I hoped. Actually, I might have to get a 90 and come back down to there. Originally it was supposed to be on this side, so I was just going to come out, however, and over to here, but now this is actually on that side. I wasn't expecting that. We'll sort him out. So I'm just going to check the port matching here now. Lucky this is forced induction, because doesn't really line up well at all. Hey, that probably sits down there, but there's no way that's gonna fit perfectly, but oh well, it is what it is. So they're supposed to be flush, so not sticking into the manifold surface, so it's as good as that's going to get. Almost like the holes needed to be drilled a little bit deeper just to get a bit more penetration for the pop rivet. It just sort of seemed to bottom out, and then the head will break there instead of, you know, the 2 mil penetration would have been a bit better.
Oh, okay.
You want to put it down? Alright.
Happy?
Yep.
Let it go?
Yep. So it doesn't fit. It's hitting on this oil pressure sender, which apparently it wasn't supposed to. It's pretty frustrating. Very, very frustrating. Yeah, so I'm going to give Harrop a call, ask him what's going on with that. I might need to get a new valley plate there, which I wasn't supposed to. The LS1 install says you don't need it. It's just for the later models. That's probably with a HTV supercharger, not a TVS, which this is. More frustrations and setbacks. I love it. So I just removed the oil pressure sender from down in there. It looks like that. That's what the blower's hitting on. So I just removed it so I can actually sit it where it's supposed to sit, and then I can get a belt distance for here, and I'm just trying to sit it on, and they're clashing there on the steam port that I've just installed, the new steam port bracket. And not only that, but where we were going to route the new dash fitting is right under there. So we might just have to put that Harrop one back on. We should be able to get to it while the blower's on, so that's not going to work. So remove the steam port piping there now, and now we're sitting on these heads by the looks, these bolt heads. So there is some different style of heads that we can use for these, which just means taking the blower off again. You can see that it hasn't mated up to the surface there yet, but at least the blower lines up. I guess that's a positive, and I can take a measurement, put a rope around it, take a measurement, then I can track down a belt. Once we sort out the oil pressure sender situation, we can try and start it. So that's going to be our belt pass. Very close there. I'm trying to put tension on it, so there is a gap. Very close, and then that comes down to the alternator past the new 55mm pulley there. Then this will come up to the tensioner on this side, which obviously I don't have enough belt length, but looks like it'll work. Yeah, not a huge gap there, but this is Harrop's kit, so they're obviously happy with that distance gap there. So yeah, I'll just run a bit of cord around it and measure up the new length. So I don't know if you saw that then, but I basically took 2 marks. One is with untensioned and 2 is tensioned. So we'll see what they've got in the middle there, obviously towards the more tensioned end. So you can see the distance there. There's about 1 inch in it, which is about what that is. So we'll measure the more tensioned end and see what we get. Righto, so there's our cord. So we're at 23.35 or 23.40. We could probably go 23.40. I think we're sort of supposed to be. So that was 23.35. That's probably 23.40 there, and that would be whatever the other one was. So then we basically go onto our favourite site or wherever we get our parts from, and we look for a 6-pack 23.40 or 45 ribbed belt. Righto, so we're going to change these bolts out with the lower profile ones in the Harrop kit, and that's where the oil pressure sender is. So it looks like that, just sits in that hole there, and it was actually the blower was actually hitting up against that plug. Might be able to get something to put it on an angle there like that, although it's not a very common size thread, so we'll see how we go. So there's a lower profile bolt for those. Apparently you can drill these holes out to countersink them, but I don't think we need to. And the difference is that is 8.5mm, and the new ones are only 4.5. So pretty big saving. My blower was only just touching those, so it'll be fine with those bolts. I won't have to countersink them. Rightio, so the issue is the oil pressure sender is basically sort of clashing on the back of the block like this, something like that, so it's sort of hitting the plug. So it's very hard to get any fittings or whatnot to put a an angle in there like the LS2 different valley plates you can get. So I went and got some fittings so I can look at sitting this there, because it's very close, but it hopefully just doesn't touch according to the photos that I took. So the idea being, can round it up to here, put a 90-degree bend on it and have that sitting there somewhere. That's the theory. Got a couple of fittings here to test it, and if all else fails, we've got a plug. This oil pressure sender is an M16 by 1.5mm thread. That's where it's sitting there, and obviously clashes with the blower, so that'll sit in there. If that doesn't work, I'll have to look at relocating it down near the oil filter or something like that. So it's going to look something like that. That's the theory. Was going to do a bend, but that sort of just complicates things. I'll see if I have enough clearance the way that it is, because you could get some sort of vibrations or resonance or whatever. But yeah, we're going to see how it goes, see what it looks like. It's going to sit like that in there, and then that'll just plug in like that. Going to swap these valley plate bolts over, and we can throw the blower back on. Right, so that's the factory LS1 crossover pipe for the steam port. That's a 6mm exit there, or 1/4 inch. This is the one I was going to use, the aftermarket one, but with all the heat exchanger piping on this side, that sort of gets in the road on that side, so we're not going to use that. This is the one that comes from Harrop, but it's an 8mm hose, so the pipes and the fittings and everything that I bought already won't fit. So what I'm going to do is I've nipped the little barb off the end of that, the pipe cutter, and then install this tube fitting to AN4, and then we can run the AN4 fittings back to the radiator like we originally planned. Righto, so before we throw the blower back on, we've got to do this steam port. So yeah, we've put the tube fitting onto the factory steam port, little manifold there. That's a 6mm or 1/4 inch tube fitting, and I just picked up 90 degrees, so that will, when the hose is on, it'll still have clearance to go on there. The belt is going to come here, but that's going to be a good inch or two away, and then find a way to route this new hose to its location there. Damn, it does look good, I must admit. Anyway, blower is back on. So here is the big moment. There is bugger all clearance, but it's not resting against the thread. It's just sitting there. There's a slight bit of play. It's very hard to see with the GoPro because it won't focus, but just not touching. So I'm happy with that. Probably could have gone about 10mm lower on my calculations there, but that's all good. Yeah, I mean, an elbow would bring it down here and may not stick up as much, but unless you come around the side end, you're not going to really see that anyway. So steam port looking good. Just going to come around there. Alright, so I'm just going to torque this bad boy down, hook up the boost for the hose there. I just remembered I also have a vacuum hose for the transmission and for the ventilation HVAC controls as well, so to run that to a vacuum line somewhere. Not sure where yet. Yeah, what's next? Probably start looking at these heat exchanger system. And I've also got some belts to go on. So like we looked at yesterday, we've got the 2, 3, 50, and 90% sure that the 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to do it for me. So what? Getting closer.